Heidi ho there, friends and neighbors. Bobby here today. Hey folks, today we have a 1995 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with a 4.0 liter engine in it. And the problem this vehicle has today is a leaking water pump. We have already confirmed that with a pressure test. So today we're going to show you how to install a brand new water pump. Stay tuned. Okay, step number one, we're going to take the radiator cap off, lay it aside. We're going to go down underneath the vehicle. We've already got a drain pad laying down here. We're going to find the petcock. We're going to go and loosen it and drain any coolant that's still in the radiator. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and pull this overflow hose off, and this should just pull off by hand. And it's just kind of routed up along the top of the shroud here. So we're going to pull this out of place, just lay it aside. And we're going to go and take a screwdriver, or you can use a 8mm nut driver or socket. We're going to loosen the two hose clamps on our upper radiator hose here. We should be able to get to both of them pretty easily, and we'll go ahead and remove that. Next, we're going to go ahead and take a 10mm ratchet wrench here, and we're going to take these two nuts off right here at the top of this radiator shroud, or the fan shroud, I'm sorry. We're going to remove this and see if it can make life a little bit easier for us to take off this upper hose, okay? Because this shroud's a little bit in my way. So let's go ahead and do this right quick. And it's going to have to come off anyway. One more thing we're going to have to do before we take this fan shroud out of the way. We're going to have to actually loosen the, let me grab the flashlight right quick, the fan, okay? 4 bolts holding the fan on. As you can see, I got a wrench down there on one. I got a 1/2 inch wrench. You can probably use a 1/2 inch or a 13. And there's one missing on this particular car, so I'm going to try to find one to go back on there. But we're going to go ahead and remove them, and then we'll remove the fan and the fan shroud together. Okay, one more thing to show you guys, okay? Before I actually got all the bolts loose on the fan down here, let me grab my light right quick. Hang on. And before I went ahead and pulled that fan off of there, I decided to go ahead and loosen this belt, the Serpentine belt. And this year model here has a mechanical adjuster, okay, not a spring tensioner like most of your newer cars. I think since then they've actually went to that on the 4.0 liter. But on this vehicle, and I want to spend a little time talking about it, your adjustment is actually the power steering pump, okay? So here's a nut, here's a bolt right here on top. You're going to loosen that bolt. And also back here on the back, I just want to point these out to you. I don't know if you're going to be able to see, but there's 2 here on the back, okay? That I don't think you're going to be able to see them. But there's 2 bolts on the back, and you'll recognize them because there'll be a slot, okay? Loosen both of those. Don't take them out. Just loosen them. On the bottom here, and I know you're not going to be able to see this, there is an adjuster sleeve, I like to call it, I guess, where there's a bolt that screws down, and you break the bolt loose, and then on the end there's another bolt, and you back it out, and then that makes you where you can move the whole mechanism. And when you tighten it up, you just do the opposite. You tighten it up so you get all the tension out of the belt, and then you lock the little nut down, okay? So anyway, that's how this belt is adjusted on this vehicle. And now that I got it loose, you can see that I can move the power steering pump freely. The belt, I can slide it right off of there if I need to. And another reminder, in case you forget how the belt goes on, there is a belt routing diagram on the top of the shroud, or there should be. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Hopefully that is self-explanatory. A little aggravating, not as easy as a spring-loaded tensioner, but it is what it is. Stay tuned. Okay, with all that done, now, hopefully, finally, we can pull the shroud and the fan out as one assembly and get our hose off of here. So anyway, here we go. So now I've got all the bolts off of the fan. So I'm going to pull the fan off of the end here. And let's see if I can, there we go. Just like that, guys. You're going to pull the fan and the shroud off as one assembly. You can just lay that right up on top of your engine here if you want to. Let me see where the camera is. Let me bring this over here a little bit closer just for a moment. As you can see on this fan, if you're not that familiar, I will point this out. Here's where the 4 nuts were that went on to the end of the water pump, and there's one missing on this particular one. I should have one here that I can put on here when I'm done. If not, I'll go to the store and actually purchase one. But let me bring the camera down. I'll show you what it looks like now. We're going to reach over here and take a hold of our serpentine belt, pull it off of the power steering pump, pull it off of the water pump here to where we can grab this pulley. And we should be able to work that off the end. We'll lay the pulley out of the way, and then we will continue on. Okay, next we've got 3 things we're going to do here in sequence. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pull this hose clamp here off. Okay, this is a heater hose going to a heater pipe that actually goes straight to the water pump. Okay, now to pull this water pump off, this pulley's in our way, so we're going to take this pulley out of the way. Okay, we're going to remove that. And we're going to go ahead on down here with a screwdriver or an 8mm or 5/16. We're going to back off this clamp and remove the lower radiator hose. So I'm going to go ahead and get all 3 of those things done, and then we'll go on from there. Backing off that lower hose right now, guys. Okay, with all that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and start removing the bolts that hold this water pump on. Notice that our power steering bracket actually goes through one side of the water pump here, so we're going to remove these as well. Looks like 13mm headed bolts all the way around this thing. So we're going to go ahead and remove them and hopefully get this water pump off of here. Okay, with all those bolts out of place, I've actually already wiggled it and it's come loose here. So we should be able to, there we go. We have pulled the old water pump out of place. Notice it has this pipe on here. We're gonna remove it to install into the new water pump. Hey folks, we went ahead and ran up to the parts store right quick and got a couple new hoses, upper radiator hose and a lower radiator hose. I was looking at the lower one when we were pulling it off, and it looked kind of oil soaked and swollen. So I went ahead and got that. We got some new clamps as well, and that bolt that I told you earlier that was missing, I ended up having to buy a whole pack of nuts, but we're going to be putting that back on here as well. So let's get going. Let's go ahead and get our cleaning tools out and get this surface cleaned over here up against the block. Folks, what we need to do now is go ahead and clean this surface up against the block really good. We need to get all this old gasket off and rust and crud and everything. And what I'll be using today for that is a 90-degree die grinder with a roll-lock disc on there, and that should get the job done very well. Okay guys, hey, we are ready to start getting ready to put our water pump back on. We got the surface of this clean. But I want to tell you a little trick here I'm going to do. You see how the coolant level is still right there at the bottom of the block where the opening is? And how it keeps just trickling out and trickling out. I'm going to show you a trick. Actually, I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go get the floor jack and I'm going to jack the back end of the car up to tilt it to where this stuff will run on out of here. And then when I let it back down, it won't be dribbling out. It'll actually bring that level down lower in the block. So I'm gonna get that done where we can get it properly clean, put our new water pump on. Okay, just got back from jacking up the vehicle and letting it sit for a few minutes and then lowering it down. Look how nice and dry that is. That coolant level is actually dropped below the lip here, okay? So it's not gonna keep dripping out while we're trying to clean this surface and get our gasket and everything in place. So let's go ahead and do that and get this thing done. Okay, real quick guys, 2 things we're going to have to do before we put our new water pump on. We've got to take these studs out of the old water pump. One of them I've already pulled out because I had to carry it with me to the store. And we got some new nuts here because we were missing one. I had to buy a whole pack. And then we're going to take a 3/4 inch wrench and we've got to back this pipe off of here and then brush off those threads there and install this pipe into the new water pump. And we will put some 3M weather stripping adhesive on those threads before we tighten it down. You can either use that or some Teflon tape. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock this out, okay? Folks, to remove these studs here, they make a tool actually for sliding over studs and removing them, but I actually don't have one for this size. But you can jam 2 nuts together onto the studs and put your wrench on the bottom one and break it loose. And that's what we've done here. So we're gonna go ahead and back each one of these out in this same method. You may have to do like I did and clamp the old water pump into a vise to where you can really get on here and break this thing loose. But now that we got it broken loose, we're going to go ahead and spin it on out by hand, and we'll get those threads cleaned off good, and we'll put some new sealer on them and reinstall it into the new pump. All right, we have our pipe in place and it's tightened down correctly. Here's our gasket. We're getting ready to put it in place with some of the 3M weather stripping adhesive also. We'll glue it in place with that. Be careful not to turn this the wrong way, because see, it will almost go in place, but the passage won't be lined up, and you'll get a water leak there for sure, and restrict the flow to the heater core. So put your gasket on correctly, glue it down, let it dry a little bit, and then we'll be ready to install. Okay, this is glued up nicely, folks, and one thing we're going to do, we're going to take a little bit of silicone RTV and put a thin coat of that here on the outside, just with our finger. And also the bolts that we took out, the water pump bolts, they're laying right here. We want to put some RTV on the threads of these before we install them, because they do go to water. And sometimes you can get coolant that would leak past the threads and just give a little weep, you know. May not be a real problem, but you'd always smell that coolant smell underneath the hood. So we want to put a little bit of RTV on there as well. Okay guys, hey, the water pump is in place. We're getting ready to tighten it down now. And then we're going to go ahead and just reverse the procedure of removal until we get everything back to the point where we can add some coolant. So stay tuned. I'll show you how to get this thing bled out. Walk over the sound of the engine running. I have my no spill funnel in place here, and we've already added about 2 gallons of coolant mixed down 50-50. As soon as the thermostat started opening, it started sucking it in. And then we've topped it back off now. That's probably going to be about all it takes. So we've got everything back together. I'm going to let it continue warming up till we get it up to total operating temperature. And then we'll go for a test drive, make sure we're not overheating or anything, make sure we don't have any leaks. Okay folks, hey, I just got back from a test drive. Want to make sure it got up to operating temperature real good. Come back, lifted the hood. Make sure I didn't smell any antifreeze smell. Crawled underneath it. Make sure I didn't see no drippy drips anywhere. It looks like we're good to go, guys. We're going to call this project done for today. I appreciate you stopping by and checking out our video on doing a water pump on a Jeep Grand Cherokee. And don't forget to come back and see us again. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell a friend about us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.